welcome to Simply Good Kitchen. My name is Bill Apodaca, and today we're going to be covering the technique of small roasting. And with that being said, we always like to say there's always 4 steps whenever you're going to roast. And we're going to demonstrate this with the rack of lamb. So first of all, step 1 to roast is we want to season the meat. And the whole idea behind doing this is as the meat roasts, the salt has time to dissolve and soak into the meat, so it's seasoned all the way through. And there's 3 ways you can season your roast. One is just plain old salt and pepper if you want to keep it simple. Second is put it in your favorite marinade overnight. Once it comes out of the marinade, hit it with your salt and pepper and away you go. Or third, what we're doing today is we're using our Italian spice blend. And this is just dried herbs and spices mixed with salt to create different flavor profiles. So we'll do a light sprinkle of our salt on the lamb, both sides. And step 1 to roast is done, seasoning. Now step 2, we want to sear this. And with these smaller roasts, essentially anything that takes 45 minutes or less in the oven to roast, we have to pan sear it to get a beautiful golden brown crust on it. So what we have here is a saute pan that we've been preheating for the last 5 minutes, and I have it hovering at high heat about 450 degrees. Now that it's on high heat, we're going to take the thermometer out, put a thin layer of oil in there, and we're going to sear it. Now you want to be careful when you place that in there, not splash hot oil. But we're going to set the timer for 2 minutes. And in that 2 minutes, we're just going to leave it in the pan. Most people, after 20 seconds, start to get a little bit nervous, and they stand over their lamb and they keep flipping it back and forth and back and forth. And what happens is it's not in the pan long enough on one side to develop that beautiful golden brown sear. So just set your timer, walk away from the pan, and let that guy sear up. And then we're going to flip it over, sear the back side, so both sides are golden brown and look wonderful. We're then going to transfer it to our roasting rack. And that's step 3, is roast it on the roasting rack. And the importance of a roasting rack is that it elevates the meat off the metal sheet tray. Metal's a heat conductor, and if we cook the roast directly on the metal, it's going to fry the underside of your roast, giving you well done on the bottom, medium rare on top. You want it medium rare all the way through, so we elevate it with the roasting rack. The second thing that a roasting rack does is it lets all the fat and juices drip free. And if you think about it like a prime rib, in a half an hour it would be swimming in its own fat and its own juices, and you end up with a greasy, soggy roast, which is not desirable. So it's a very simple solution, a roasting rack we're going to place this on. If you want to come back to the rack of lamb, our 2 minutes are just about up, and you'll see when we flip this over, we're going to have this beautiful golden brown crust. See that? And all our spices are toasted up, and now we're going to set the timer for 2 more minutes and sear the back side of it. Alright, so our 25-minute timer just went off, so our rack of lamb is done. We'll just double check the thermometer, and it's reading 135 degree internal temperature. So it is safe now to remove the lamb for the oven. And now step 4 to roast is we need to let this rest. And there's 2 main reasons why we let the meat rest. One, it's called carryover cook time. So typically this is going to rise 10 degrees in temperature. We just pulled it out of that hot oven. The heat is still traveling towards the middle of the roast. The bigger the roast, the longer it takes for this to happen. And second, when the protein in the meat gets hot, it tightens up like this. So if we chop into it too soon, it's still tight and it squeezes all the juice out onto your cutting board. And when you lose that juice, you lose flavor, moisture, texture, heat, all these great things. So what you really want to do is let the meat rest and relax. The formula we came up with is for every pound of meat we're cooking, it's 8 minutes of rest time. So this is about 1.5 pounds. We need to let it rest 12 minutes. But we teach a prime rib class where we're roasting a 10-pound prime rib and we have to let that rest 80 minutes. And how that works is we remove the prime rib from the oven when the internal temperature hits about 125 degrees. As it sits there for the first hour, that temperature slowly rises to 135. And then for the next half hour, it slowly drops back down to 125 degree, the original temperature we pulled it at. So remember, it's not getting colder, it's actually getting hotter. And with that, we feel letting it rest takes a lot of pressure off you during the holidays. You have 2 hours to let that prime rib rest, to mash your potatoes, make your gravy, or what have you. And those are the 4 basic steps into roast. Remember, it's season the meat, sear the meat, roast the meat on a roasting rack to the desired doneness. Step 4, let it rest, 8 minutes per pound.
And let me ask you, Bill, when you let that meat rest, are you going to cover it with a piece of aluminum foil or anything like that?
No, we don't like to cover it with foil because if we covered it, it would steam it, making it soggy, and it would trap that heat in it and more than likely overcook it.
Oh, thanks for that information.
You're welcome. And we'll come back and cut this in 12 minutes. Our rack of lamb has rested for the 12 minutes, and you can see the thermometer is reading about 130 degrees. So it's climbed to about 140, 145, and now it's dropped back down to 130. And now it's time to cut into it. And we're going to remove the thermometer. And when we slice into it, you'll see all the juices stay in the meat. They're not pouring out, and we have a nice medium rare all the way through. And that's because when you let it rest, the protein strands have time to relax and reabsorb those juices so they stay in the meat. And we got the carryover cook time, so we have this nice even color, medium rare all the way through. If we were just to chop into that without letting it rest, it'd be raw in the middle and medium rare on the outside. And that's how you prepare a rack of lamb.